there's been some times where I've been scared out of my mind.
Sure.
There's been some times where I've been broken. And, but the fact that it actually didn't crush me is what helped me realize, like, okay, wait a minute, maybe I can actually move on. Welcome to the Hope in Real Life podcast with Jason Gore. Our team is passionate and committed to bringing you more hope in the everyday, real areas of your life. If this conversation and content is valuable for you, please do us a favor. Like, subscribe, and even share. You never know how valuable it could be to share a little bit of hope with someone else. Let's get the conversation started.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are listening from. Welcome to the Hope in Real Life podcast with Jason Gore. I'm Wade Harris. This is episode number 3. And we are glad you are with us today. This is a place where you can find hope, regardless of what you're going through in your life. And today, I know this is a big topic for you, Jason. It's one that you love, man. This is so much a part of you. Mental toughness.
Yeah.
I actually feel like, so some people are going to look at this and they're going to be like, well, I know Jason works out. He looks like he's one of the toughest people that we know. But you are also one of the most mentally tough people that at least is in my orbit of people. And so, man, I'm really excited to chat with you about this today, man.
Yeah, man, I'm happy to do it. I mean, I'm thrilled with the opportunity. I mean, we call the podcast Hope in Real Life, The Desires. How can we bring hope to people in their real lives, in their everyday lives? And I just have this conviction, man, that this is one of those areas that if lacking, I mean, how do we have hope with everything that's going on in the world around us?
Right.
And so I think it can be so valuable. I think it's so lacking in the world around us. Thrilled to have a chance to talk about it a bit.
Yeah. So, man, let's hop into it. One, when did you get to the point in your life where you said, hey, I need to be mentally tough, or this is something that I need to focus on in any realm? Because I think sometimes the easy thing for us to do is you just kind of go through life and you don't necessarily have a plan with all this stuff that you, and you are definitely a planner. And so.
Yeah, it's, when did I become, I don't know that I can say that I know exactly when. I think there's been different seasons where I realized I needed it at different levels.
Yeah.
And, this will just be a constant theme in my life because of growing up in athletics. I think spending time wrestling growing up is a place where it's just front and center because it's not an easy sport. You're lined up in front of somebody else. You're the same weight. There's nobody else to hide behind. You can't point to another teammate. Everybody's watching.
And you got the outfit, Jason.
And you got that. You got to feel comfortable standing there in something that's less than what most people have on. Yep. And so just to walk out under those circumstances, I mean, you got to be mentally tough to be able to do that. And then you've got somebody else that's coming after you. And if you don't fight back, if you don't get after it, it's going to tell on you. If you haven't put the work in up to that point, it's going to tell on you. And so I think through athletics, through wrestling, through football, I kind of learned from an early age, you actually can do more. You can push yourself further than what your mind tells you that you can. But more than that, if you don't, you're not going to have what it takes when the spotlight really comes on, when the whistle really blows, when the game really starts. And so I had an opportunity to learn. If you don't learn over time, if you don't put in the work and learn what it means to be mentally tough in a moment, you're probably not going to have what it takes to push through and to accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish.
That's good. That's good. How would you define mental toughness?
It's a good question. So I knew we were going to be talking about it. Okay, so if you'd asked, so if you just would have asked me on the street, I don't know that I would have given you this exact definition, and you might even have got a better one. But now I've had a chance to let it rattle out of my head. But where we're going to live, at least for this podcast and for the next episode, because this is going to be a two-parter. We're going to say the mental toughness is the ability to understand and believe that you can and should go beyond what feels comfortable.
Wow. Okay.
And now here's the last part. And then do it. All right. Because the first part, like I'm so tired. like I love the word resilience and I hate the word resilience, right? I hate it because every marketing campaign in the world right now is using resilience, right? And so everybody wants you to buy a t-shirt. Everybody wants you to get a coffee mug. They would say something like that at the beginning. It's the ability to understand and believe that you can and should push yourself beyond what you believe is comfortable or even survivable. That looks good on a bumper sticker. But true mental toughness is and then doing it. So we'll live there at least for a time together with the definition.
I mean, just talk a bit about what that has looked like. Obviously, you mentioned early on sports, athletics, all of that stuff. Obviously, you coach in addition to pastoring a very large church. You coach at youth athletics. You coach people, right? What does that look like in your life, and from a practical sense?
Yeah, so from a practical sense, and again, we'll get into this a little bit when we kind of break down, we're going to go to the ABCs of mental toughness, okay? But again, that's going to be episode 2. But from a practical sense, that means just understanding life is hard. And if you're going to be able to deal with hard things, you have to do hard things. You don't just wake up in the morning and able to accomplish whatever it is in front of you without working up to it. We understand that. And so for me in my life, I mean, you mentioned that I'm a planner, my wife will watch this and she might disagree with you, but that's because like planning is her superpower. Okay. But for me, it looks like making sure that I intentionally have things in my life that do push me beyond my regular level of comfort. And so whether you're talking about always trying to learn something new or study something new, whether that means take on a new challenge that I've never accomplished before, whether that looks like whether I'm working out, I don't just train or work out just to work out. I keep pretty close tabs on what I did in my last workout. And my workout next week is to do 1 more rep, 5 more pounds, a little bit faster, a little bit longer. And so for me, it just makes sure that I'm doing hard things in my life so that I'm more prepared when the other hard things actually show up.
And so, like for you feel like that even translates, like just take the workout, for instance. That even translates into other areas of your life because you've intentionally trained your mind and your body that, hey, I can go a little bit further on this.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it's that idea of understanding and believing, right? And understanding that you can do something, like having the intellectual knowledge is different than having an actual belief. And there's a lot of different ways to gain belief in something, but actually experiencing it is certainly one of them. And so when you can actually experience, you put in the hard work, you don't actually die, unless you do, but then it's over anyway, right? And so that's a whole different thing. Like I'm not saying that you can actually push through death, but if you're not dead yet, you're not dead yet. And we forget that sometimes. We can just sit here and feel like the world is caving in around us, and it might be, but if we're thinking about it, man, we still got breath in our lungs. So we got enough gas to take the next step.
That's good. Is there a point where in your mental toughness journey, and this is not just you, but just I'm speaking in generalities now, where we can say, man, this is too much. Like I'm pushing myself too far because I've maybe entered a space that's either not mentally healthy or physically healthy or whatever the case may be. But is there a point where it's just like, hey, this is too much? Or should we not even look at it like that?
Yeah,
because we're limiting ourselves.
That's a great question. And it probably depends on who you talk to, right? Now you're talking to me, so I'm going to give you my answer. All right. There's plenty of other guys out there that are probably going to say, no, there's never too much. You just push through. I mean, you pick up any book by David Goggins and make sure you're okay with a couple bad words if you do that. And you're going to be motivated. But he's going to say, absolutely not. You just keep moving forward. I got a little bit different perspective on it than that. But this is probably a good time before I even jump into that. I just want to acknowledge while we're talking about mental toughness, and I've got some stuff because we said we're going to talk about it, and our desire is to bring hope to other people. I don't want to pretend like I don't ever doubt.
Sure.
All right. And I'm sure that it would be amiss if we get through this podcast and the next one and me or you not at least acknowledge. No, there's been some times where I've been scared out of my mind.
Sure.
There's been some times where I've been broken. And but the fact that it actually didn't crush me is what helped me realize, like, okay, wait a minute, maybe I can actually move on. So I just want to acknowledge that, like, this is not a topic for people that are superheroes, because that ain't me.
How do you think that helped you? Because that in and of itself, most guys, we cannot admit when we are afraid.
Yeah.
I struggle with that.
Yeah.
I shouldn't even say most guys.
Yeah.
I Wade Harris.
Right. Let's speak for ourselves, right? That's what my therapist tells me anyway. Say your name. Quit talking about other people. Yeah. So, how has it helped me? This is not necessarily just a Bible-based podcast, right? So people listen to this with all different, backgrounds and spiritual beliefs, but I really do have a faith in Christianity that says God allows us to go through trials because it develops certain things inside of us.
Sure.
Again, the sports background tells me, like, if I want to get faster, then I have to run hard and I have to break my body down. I have to wear myself down, and it will come back stronger. And so when you get to the end of your rope, so to speak, when you get to the end of the road, when you've got no gas left in the tank and you find yourself saying, there is nowhere else that I can turn. But you wake up the next day.
Yeah.
You realize, man, maybe I can keep going.
I survived.
That's right. I survived. And look, I don't know how this lands, right? But what's the great theologian, the great philosopher, Rocky Balboa? What is it? He said, it doesn't matter how many times you get knocked back down. It matters that you get back up. So I think it's hard to talk about mental toughness. It's hard to talk about resilience, truly, until you have been knocked down a few times. But when you get up and you've got a story to tell and you've got something to recall and to believe in, now you've got a little bit more gas in the tank.
Yeah. What about for you? Like you mentioned wrestling. I know that's been a big part of your life. It's definitely one of your loves. You wrestled at a high level, like NC State. Like that's a high level of wrestling. But you didn't win every match. Right. So there were probably some times where
you didn't win every match.
You trained hard.
Yep.
You like, I'm going to this one. I know this is going to be tough, but I feel like I got it. But it didn't quite work out the way you wanted it to work out. How were you able to keep the train going after maybe you failed in a spot that wasn't what you wanted to do?
Yeah. It's all about perspective, right? And I go back and forth on this because, there's, even the recent NBA interview, like, did you consider this series a failure? Like, no, I didn't consider it a failure.
Giannis.
You asked Michael Jordan, like, he probably might would have said, no, it was a failure. That was a failure if we lost.
Mike definitely would have said that. Kobe too.
That's exactly right. Yeah, so, I think it comes into perspective, but and you asked the question, which we'll come back to, when is healthy and when is unhealthy. At the end of the day, you have a goal. If you can't acknowledge that you didn't hit your goal, I don't think you can grow. Now good. And I would not disagree with Michael Jordan on anything when it comes to competitiveness and toughness. But what I would say is, if we were honest, I think it's a true failure if you can't admit it.
Sure.
Right? But the moment that you admit it, but then you go back to work, I don't know if that's a failure anymore because now you're growing. And so it's all about perspective. Like, so did I fail to win a Super Bowl so far in my life? Well, I didn't even play college ball. I didn't play in the NFL. So I have failed to win a Super Bowl. But am I willing to put in the work to grow? So it's all about perspective. But if your perspective is to be the best version of yourself, then that's a bit different. And so in college, and I did not have this, I'll tell you, that's a whole nother conversation. I came as a very successful wrestler in North Carolina. Well, North Carolina wrestling at the high school level, especially back then, it wasn't the most elite, right?
It's not Ohio. I'm from Ohio,
I would say it's not Ohio. I would say it's not Pennsylvania. I would say it's not New Jersey, though. I did beat someone from Ohio at high school nationals, but that's another
respect.
So it's not the same, but you go from like winning every match and just about every match in the first period, and then you get to college and like it's tied at the end of the first period, but you're down one. And I was not mentally tough. I did not handle it well, and it beat me up. And
so that was one of those moments that said,
I'm talking to you about this stuff as a guy that it took 3 or 4 years for me to learn how to deal with that. Like it got worse before it got better. Like I actually had to relearn how to win, and how to have a mental mindset that was even worse. And I would even argue it was probably the last half of my senior year before I even really understood how to approach that level of competition based on what my experience had been up until that point. So I don't even remember what the question was that we were talking. But I would tell you, when it comes to wrestling, like what I learned is, man, you've got to tell yourself it's not about the wins and losses. It's about, are you bringing everything that you have to compete with yourself in that moment? And that's when your perspective changes. That's when the freedom opens up to continue moving forward.
See, I'm going to tell you why, like, just what you shared was so fascinating to me. I never played college athletics. As much as I love basketball, I'm 5'8", it just didn't quite happen for me, right? But to hear you talk about the differences between college, high school athletics, the stuff you struggled with, and now just knowing your life, I'm like, you're helping kids become mentally tough. Yeah. And so it's not even just you learned the lesson for yourself, you learned it to be able to help other people as well. Yeah. And that to me is tremendous.
Yeah, I mean, I tell the kids I coach on a regular basis, like, whether you believe you can be great or not, you're probably right. And there's just something about your approach to what you do that is based in your belief, and it's just going to change. Sure. And if you show up to practice like you don't think you could be great, you're not going to practice like you can. And then when you show up in a game, you're going to practice, or you're going to play like someone who has practiced as though they know that they don't have an opportunity to be great. Yeah. You're not going to be great. Yeah. And then when you amplify that consistently over time, you're heading in one direction or the other.
That's good. It's good. I think sometimes when we look at being mentally tough, there's also a component of stress that can come with it. Yeah. Like, even when I'm hearing you talk about college and dealing with that level of winning, I'm like, that felt stressful to me. just hearing that. Yeah. I was like, maybe my blood pressure went up a little bit just thinking about how have you, going through this journey, going through this process, just even learned to manage your stress levels during these seasons?
Yeah. I'm still learning, because life continues to throw things at you. While there's some value to training hard, putting on a tiny uniform, going and standing in front of another grown man with, people watch him. Yep. It still doesn't prepare you exactly for what happens when, look, let's make it real practical. When my wife isn't loving me the way I want to be loved, or when your kids start making decisions that you don't think they should be making, or, hey, now you've just been asked to lead a large church in the midst of a chaotic time in our country and world, and in the midst of a chaotic time as a church. And so it doesn't always translate. Sure. And so you're always learning. But I think that is part of mental toughness, is recognizing you've always got to grow. So for me, and I think in the last episode, we covered mental, emotional, and spiritual health. It comes from making sure I'm trying to grow, and now I'm starting to give away some of the points from the next episode. Sure. But focusing on growth in each one of those areas. Like, what am I doing to constantly learn and grow mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically? Yeah. The physical side for me, it's the easiest way to push yourself in a calculated way and remind yourself that you actually can overcome something that you didn't know if you could.
That's good.
That's good. And so if I'm going out to run, I've got my last time, I've got this time, I'm going to push myself a little bit further. If I've got this rep over last rep, I can push myself a little bit further. And then, not to mention, man, you talk about stress. Like, there is science that shows that when you lift heavy things, when you push your body, it actually releases chemicals that do positive things for our brain. And that'll be the least scientific way that I can say that. But that actually, it impacts the way that you think, the way that you perceive the world around you, the way that you perceive information, the way that you believe that you can actually continue to move forward. And so we're talking about lifting heavy things. We're talking about some high intensity cardio. We're talking about some still yoga, breathing. And I'm not necessarily talking about Eastern meditation and anything like that. I'm just talking about deep breathing, relaxing, stretching, making sure that you're taking care of the body. And I tell you, man, you'd be so shocked after 30 to 45 minutes of just sitting still, what that actually can do for your body mentally and how you approach what you're going through.
Yeah, I know that was one of the things that, and I can't remember if I shared this last episode. I know I've shared it with you. a number of times, but you really encouraged our staff here at the church to start taking those quiet moments.
Yeah.
Right? I have 2 reminders every day to this day that stem from that period of time of, hey, wait, pause for a minute, whatever you're doing, and get some quiet time in.
Paul David Tripp calls it take time for your daily office.
Yep. It's good. It's good. The ABCs. The ABCs of mental toughness.
Yep. So maybe this is a good time to break.
Sure.
You think? I mean, that's one episode, right? We said, look, and so again, I just want to recognize like the reason why this is such a big topic, and we probably should have hit this at the beginning, but I really believe right now the world is constantly hearing you can be whatever you want to be, you can do whatever you want to do, and what that does is it tells us that we can give in to what our minds tell us or what our bodies telling us, but as humans, we were created. There's a part of us that is just built for survival, and so we're naturally going to take what seems to be the easy way out if just left to ourselves. And the reality is that doesn't always lead us to a place of thriving. And so when we're constantly hearing this message, is you can do whatever you want to do, you can be whatever you want to be, our tendency is to pull back from what's really going to grow us as men and women and as students. And so it's for that reason that we're talking about this. I do think there's I tried to make this as simple as we possibly can. And so the next episode, we're going to cover ABCs of mental toughness. Hope you'll stick with us and tune in and check it out. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Hope in Real Life podcast. If this content was valuable for you, don't forget, like, subscribe, share. You never know how important it could be to bring a little hope into someone else's life. There's even a place here for you to comment. We would love to hear from you and hear your feedback. Until next time, let's keep sharing hope.